case numbers in the next 2 or 3 weeks will bounce around and are likely to go up substantially. And we have to brace ourselves for that. But our key aim will be keeping people out of hospital and keeping people alive. And that's why the vaccination rate obviously helps us with that. Of course, we need to see case numbers come down.
In Vietnam, thousands of jobless workers are fleeing after an extension of restrictions in the largest city of Ho Chi Minh, in the epicenter of the country's worst outbreak yet. But authorities are anxious to prevent them from leaving the city and potentially spreading the virus to other parts of the country.
In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed another 95 lives over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has reached 24,573. It said more than 3,200 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry said the positivity rate of cases declined to 6.68%. Pakistan's caseload has exceeded 1.1 million, while more than 933,000 people have recovered. The ministry said there are more than 87,000 active cases with nearly 4,900 critical patients. It says so far 43.4 million vaccine doses have been administered in the country. A U.S. regulator has opened a safety probe into auto giant Tesla's autopilot following a series of crashes. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said there have been 11 crashes since 2018 due to autopilot. The probe will take in 765,000 U.S. vehicles with the autopilot built since 2014. Tesla shares closed down 4.3% on the news. Chief Executive Elon Musk has repeatedly defended autopilot. In April, he tweeted, "Tesla with autopilot is now approaching 10 times lower chance of accident than the average vehicle." In cricket, Rawalakot Hawks and Muzaffarabad Tigers will meet in the final of the Kashmir Premier League. Earlier, Hawks beat Mirpur Royals by 4 wickets with 2 balls to spare in the second eliminator. Shajil Khan's 141 runs went in vain as Hawks chased down the mammoth total of 237 runs thanks to Kashif Ali's blistering century. He sealed the victory for his team with a stylish 6. Hussain Talat scored 51 runs for Hawks. The International Cricket Council has released the schedule for the upcoming Men's T20 World Cup. As per the schedule, arch rivals India and Pakistan will play each other on the 24th of October in Dubai. In round 1, hosts Oman and Papua New Guinea will begin the tournament on 17th of October. Scotland and Bangladesh in Group B will be clashing in the evening match on the same date. Ireland, Netherlands, Sri Lanka and Namibia, making up Group A, will be in action on 18th of October. The top 2 teams in each group will proceed to the Super 12 stage of the tournament beginning on 23rd of October. And that is all for now. The latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.
Welcome to the most modern and luxurious gated community in Bahria Town, Karachi. Here, every luxury is at your doorstep. Every facility is within your reach. Every leisure is a few minutes away from you. An international standard hospital with state-of-the-art cardio facility. Pakistan's leading schools and colleges. Bahria Town, Karachi is a gift to the people of Karachi and Sindh. where for the first time in Pakistan, international standard infrastructure and facilities are being provided to the middle class. Bahria Town, Karachi is the safest gated community in Pakistan due to its excellent quality of life and security. Thousands of families live in Bahria Town's housing communities and apartment blocks. Life without fear and danger, and the best lifestyle. Bahria Town, Karachi's bright streets and clean environment offer a view of a well-managed and responsible society. The latest waste management for waste disposal, mini dams for rainwater storage, water and sewerage management system, dedicated grid stations. Bahria Town, Karachi's lifestyle and excellent management is the reason that most of the houses in the whole of Karachi are being built in Bahria Town, Karachi, where due to the best and futuristic planning there is an uninterrupted traffic flow. There are public queues at Bahria Town, Karachi's head offices, transfer counters, and stability in price of properties. Beginning of membership in Pakistan's first 36-hole golf course and completion of clubhouse. Construction of country club and 5-star hotel after possession of plots. Construction of houses in Bahria Golf City is in full swing. Construction of Rafi Cricket Stadium in Bahria Sports City, as well as possession of plots and luxury villas. The world's third largest grand mosque is in the final stages of completion, while several other mosques have been completed. Phased occupation also begins in Bahria Heights. Construction of Model Street and Navy Greens. Possession phase of Bahria Paradise Villas also begins. Construction of Central Park, New York-style apartments. In Bahria farmhouses, many constructions have been completed while others are underway. Commercial areas of Bahria Town are reaching new heights of success. Hundreds of commercial buildings are making Bahria Town Karachi's new commercial hub. The day and nights of Bahria Town are different. Here, people do not fight for life, but live a full life. They do not fear difficulties, but they gather happiness. It is a city for people who want to live their lives, make their future generations successful, and see their future bright. For a full life and a hopeful future, call 0800 00 100. Bahria Town, Karachi.
I have been suffering from arthritis for 4 years now. At the age of 14, her eyesight started getting weak. They send me monthly household expenses, rations, and electricity bills. Many thanks to the people of Bahria Town. Thanks to their entire team. Thanks to Malik Riaz. They supported us more than our own relatives. The way they bless people, they did not just make this world, but the one hereafter.
Bahria Town has also taken the responsibility of sponsoring the needy people. This love for the people is the ideology of Bahria Town, and this passion keeps us continuing the service of humanity. Bahria Town, building a new tomorrow.
It was Pakistan's initiative to start a cricket league called the Kashmir Premier League. Pakistan showed the world that it stands with Kashmir. Despite all the hurdles, Kashmir Premier League kicks off in time. Stay tuned to Indus News for the latest updates of KPL.
Welcome to the most modern and luxurious gated community in Bahria Town, Karachi. Here, every luxury is at your doorstep. Every facility is within your reach. Every leisure is a few minutes away from you. An international standard hospital with state-of-the-art cardio facility. Pakistan's leading schools and colleges. Bahria Town, Karachi is a gift to the people of Karachi and Sindh. where for the first time in Pakistan, international standard infrastructure and facilities are being provided to the middle class. Bahria Town, Karachi is the safest gated community in Pakistan due to its excellent quality of life and security. Thousands of families live in Bahria Town's housing communities and apartment blocks. Life without fear and danger, and the best lifestyle. Bahria Town, Karachi's bright streets and clean environment offer a view of a well-managed and responsible society. The latest waste management for waste disposal, mini dams for rainwater storage, water and sewerage management system, dedicated grid stations. Bahria Town, Karachi's lifestyle and excellent management is the reason that most of the houses in the whole of Karachi are being built in Bahria Town, Karachi, where due to the best and futuristic planning there is an uninterrupted traffic flow. There are public queues at Bahria Town, Karachi's head offices, transfer counters, and stability in price of properties. Beginning of membership in Pakistan's first 36-hole golf course and completion of clubhouse. Construction of country club and 5-star hotel after possession of plots. Construction of houses in Bahria Golf City is in full swing. Construction of Rafi Cricket Stadium in Bahria Sports City, as well as possession of plots and luxury villas. The world's third largest Grand Mosque is in the final stages of completion, while several other mosques have been completed. Phased occupation also begins in Bahria Heights. Construction of Model Street and Navy Greens. Possession phase of Bahria Paradise Villas also begins. Construction of Central Park, New York-style apartments. In Bahria farmhouses, many constructions have been completed while others are underway. Commercial areas of Bahria Town are reaching new heights of success. Hundreds of commercial buildings are making Bahria Town Karachi's new commercial hub. The day and nights of Bahria Town are different. Here, people do not fight for life, but live a full life. They do not fear difficulties, but they gather happiness. It is a city for people who want to live their lives, make their future generations successful, and see their future bright. For a full life and a hopeful future, call 0800 00 100. Bahria Town, Karachi.
Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Raja Sarosh Sahib and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have declared an amnesty for government employees and urged women to join their government. In a statement, a member of Taliban's Cultural Commission, Imanullah Samangani, said the Islamic Emirate doesn't want women to be victims. This comes after President Joe Biden said he stands squarely behind his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan. In an address from White House, Biden blamed Afghan political leaders and their army for the Taliban's takeover. The US has voiced alarm over Iran's production of uranium metal and urged Tehran to return to nuclear talks. The State Department said Iran has no credible need to produce uranium metal, which has direct relevance to nuclear weapons development. Earlier in a report, the UN nuclear watchdog said Iran has produced 200 grams of uranium metal enriched up to 20%. In Niger, officials says 37 people have been killed in a militant attack in the western Tillaberi region. They said armed men sped into a village on motorbikes on Monday, shooting people as they worked in their fields. 13 of people are children. A human rights group, Fortify Rights, says ethnic Karen commanders in Myanmar have admitted that their forces killed 25 men in June. The commanders denied wrongdoing, saying the men were spies for the military, which seized power in February and detained elected leaders. The rights group says the killings amount to a war crime. India has registered 437 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 25,000 cases. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has put the nation under strict lockdown after one case of the coronavirus was reported in Auckland. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 95 more people lost their lives to the virus and over 3,200 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 207 million people so far. And in the Kashmir Premier League, Rawalakot Hawks are battling against Muzaffarabad Tigers in the final of the tournament. Usman Arshad has replaced Arsalan Arif in the Tigers squad, while Ahmed Shehzad of Hawks isn't playing due to an injury. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.
Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nashin Bukhari, bringing you the latest and most exciting entertainment news from showbiz world. In today's episode, we will discuss brown actors trying to adjust in Hollywood, followed by 3 recommendations holiday season. First things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Priyanka Chopra talks about breaking free of the brown girl stereotype in Hollywood. Bono's son and his band top UK chart with debut album. Cannes Film Festival, Titane wins top Palme d'Or prize. Bridgerton suspends production indefinitely after COVID outbreak on set. And Eminem leaves Biz Markie fans disappointed. And now moving to our top story of the day. Priyanka Chopra is shedding light on how she managed to keep stereotypical roles at bay when she first entered the Hollywood industry. To discuss this further, we are joined by entertainment journalist Liam Heffernan. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So now we all know that even it is 2021, and although times have changed, but seems like there is still a struggle phase for people of color working in Hollywood, especially on screen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the issue isn't even just with people of color. I think it's with every ethnic minority. Even just women struggle to really break through sometimes in Hollywood. I think it says an awful lot when it was only within the last decade that that any Hollywood franchise had just a single female lead promoting the film, and that was The Hunger Games. And that was a white woman as well. So I think Priyanka Chopra, her comments are unfortunate, but certainly not surprising. It's a huge challenge for any non-white, non-male person to break into the industry.
Right. And the Hollywood normal seems to be very different. Priyanka Chopra expressed that she had to play more ethnically ambiguous parts initially. After a few years when people were like, okay, she's not that different, only then she could demand roles where her ethnicity popped. Does that mean one has to go through a process in order to be accepted in that environment?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one for anyone to juggle. I think actors, when you enter Hollywood, and this is I guess true for anyone. As soon as you do one particular role, when you play one type really well, you do get typecast. So I think particularly that issue is compounded significantly with non-white actors, because you're often cast because your character is the Indian one, or the black one, or the gay one, and I think that's a real challenge. And I think Priyanka Chopra has obviously very deliberately gone into Hollywood and been a lot pickier with the roles that she's taken. And I think that's an incredible example to set. When she goes in, and her first big Hollywood role was Baywatch. Okay, the film itself wasn't very critically acclaimed, but I think it was a big step for her and for all people of colour that she went in and she didn't play the Indian one, she played the love interest.
Yes. And
then a couple of years later in Isn't It Romantic, she didn't play the Indian one, she played the model. And I think that's a really big step.
And now Priyanka exclusively mentioned the struggles of being a brown woman in the Western entertainment industry. And we see that Southeast Asian actors have not been that much celebrated as compared to other Asian actors, like Jackie Chan and, actors from Far East. There seems to be a geographic division here. What do you say about that?
Yeah, and I think that's just maybe historical trends in Hollywood. When you say sort of Jackie Chan, I think there was certainly an era when sort of the martial arts movie was very popular, and Hollywood, being Hollywood, thought, okay, let's go to China or Hong Kong, or those areas where martial arts is particularly big, and let's find someone that can represent that. It's still this horrible example of typecasting and kind of racial profiling in the movies. But you're right, that there haven't been the same kind of opportunities for other parts of Asia.
Now, Liam, Priyanka told that she demanded to play roles that were not specific boxes. Otherwise, filmmakers probably would not care about this aspect, just the way we saw Kumail Nanjiani portraying as a Bollywood superstar in a recent trailer of Marvel's Eternal. So how important and effective do you think a celebrity's own demand can be when they wish to break these stereotypes?
It's a really fine balancing act, because I think when you're a celebrity and people expect a certain thing from you, your brand is almost defined by what people want from you, and if you don't deliver that, then you can fall out of favour. So that's not to say that Priyanka should play to type. I think it's very bold of her not to, and to find roles that deliberately don't. But she certainly took the more difficult path to success.
Right. And do you think what Priyanka or other Southeast Asian celebrities had to go through is because of lack of understanding of how diversity works, and it's not only about adding a person from a certain ethnic background in the project, it's more than that?
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Really, I think we became very distracted at first, as an industry, with just saying, okay, we need to look more diverse. How do we do that? Let's just put Priyanka Chopra in the movie. That will do the trick. But that's not the case. If you want true diversity and true kind of representation in film, it's about having that perspective and those voices inputting into that film or that TV show from day one behind the camera. You know, because otherwise you could just have an Indian character, for instance, written by a white man, and it just becomes a caricature, and that's what's happened all too often over the years.
Right. Right, and on the contrary, there seems to be an understanding that revolves around cultural representation when it comes to giving characters to certain actors with different ethnicities, which seems to be slightly upsetting at times for them. Don't you think this causes a bit of confusion here? I mean, at one point, some of the celebrities are asking for cultural representation. Some of them are even blamed for cultural inappropriation. And then some of them are, asking or demanding for roles out of the box. So what is this confusion here?
I think, I think it all stems from a good place, from a place of everyone wanting to try and be more sensitive and more appropriate and try and create that better representation in the industry. I think how we go about that is often disputed. I think there are instances of people say, for instance, the last couple of years, black or particularly like trans characters, there's shouts for those characters to be played by black or trans individuals, and that's certainly very valid, because why create a golden opportunity to create parts and allow those people into the industry? I say those people, that's very reductive, but from a very white male industry, you've created an opportunity for someone to represent themselves in a very accurate, very layered way. Why wouldn't you do that? But on the other hand, of course, you need an industry that's fully diverse and enough that's not so much of an issue. I think we're a way away from that.
Absolutely. Now, there seems to be a lot of complaining, criticism with respect to lack of understanding, diversity, and cultural representation and whatnot. There still seems to be a lot of room for, reforms and corrections. But what solid steps do you expect should be taken to turn the entertainment industry even friendlier for people of color?
I think the big thing to address, and it is a work in progress, I think it is happening, is creating role models and examples in the industry. I think being the first is always the hardest. And I think when you look at organisations like the Academy, they're taking very concrete steps to increase their membership and their voters so that more films, a more diverse slate of films are recognised at the awards. I think it's about cinemas giving more screen time to films that aren't just big box office fodder. It's about holding films up that show diversity and saying this is what we're about.
Right. Great discussion. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Liam.
Thank you.
That was Liam Heffernan. And now moving to other story details of the day. Elijah Houston has proved he can follow in his father Bono's footsteps after the debut album by his band Inhaler entered the UK chart at #1. Houston fronts the Irish band whose LP Won't Always Be Like This has knocked Olivia Rodrigo-Sour off the top spot. Although Bono's band U2 has had 10 UK #1 albums in total, Inhaler has managed something they did not by going to the summit with their debut. Director Julie Ducournau is only the second woman to receive the Palme d'Or and the first female to win it alone in Cannes Film Festival. The film Titane, which is Ducournau's second feature, tells the story of a young female killer. The award was prematurely revealed by U.S. director Spike Lee at the beginning of Saturday's ceremony. The jury president let the big secret slip before telling the audience. Titane had split critical opinion and has been described as one of the most shocking ever shown at the festival. The hit Netflix series Bridgerton had to put a pause on its production for the second season after a COVID breakout on set. The hit series had to shutter the sets temporarily after a crew member contracted COVID-19. The production of the second season resumed but was suspended indefinitely on Saturday after another person tested positive. It remains unknown whether the second diagnosis was of a crew or cast member. The report details that Netflix has stringent testing protocols in place. The news comes after the United Kingdom recently reported its highest number of COVID cases on July 16th in over 6 months. Eminem has yet to offer condolences on the death of rapper Biz Markie, who died at the age of 57 on Friday. Biz passed away in Baltimore Hospital at 6:25 p.m. Friday night. Tributes poured in shortly after the sad news surfaced online. Snoop Dogg and several other people from the music industry paid tribute to Biz Markie. Eminem fans remembered the deceased for his last year's Godzilla video, which the Detroit rapper had enjoyed watching. The Lose Yourself, who often uses his social media accounts to offer condolences to the passing away of any friend or acquaintance, has yet to react to Biz Markie's death. And that's it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned.
I have been suffering from arthritis for 4 years now. At the age of 14, her eyesight started getting weak. They send me monthly household expenses, rations, and electricity bills. Many thanks to the people of Bahria Town. Thanks to their entire team. Thanks to Malik Riaz. They supported us more than our own relatives. The way they bless people, they did not just make this world, but the one hereafter.
Bahria Town has also taken the responsibility of sponsoring the needy people. This love for the people is the ideology of Bahria Town, and this passion keeps us continuing the service of humanity. Bahria Town, building a new tomorrow.
Welcome back. Nothing seems more fun than watching old movies with friends and family during midsummer, especially when it's too hot to go outside. In this segment, we will review 3 recommendations that had been long forgotten: Scooby-Doo, Pacific Rim, and Starship Troopers. To review the movies, we are joined by film critic Van Connor. Van, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nashim. It's a pleasure. Thank you for letting me talk about such fun movies as these 3, because what wants to talk about?
Yeah. So starting with Scooby-Doo, we're not mad, of course, but we have questions. Scooby-Doo was amazing as cartoons, but the movie, unfortunately, was not loved as much as the cartoons. Being a film critic, how would you decode the reasons?
I think it's a movie that is very much ahead of its time and misses. You remember Scooby-Doo came out in 2002.
Yes.
Its director, Roger Gosnell, was just coming off of having directed 2 big hits. He directed Never Been Kissed and Big Mama's House, which were pretty decent, hits. It had a very young screenwriter who was an unknown commodity at the time by the name of James Gunn, who kept trying to crowbar subtle, very adult references into the script, and they would remove them. And eventually he would manage to slip 1 or 2 through. And he's someone that would become known for Guardians of the Galaxy and this month's The Suicide Squad reboot. Very huge name now. But if you go back and you watch that first Scooby-Doo movie now, you can absolutely see that very biting, very horror-friendly talent that's just desperately trying to emerge from this, I think, quite clever and very meta film.
Right. Do you think that it was underrated? Because it had cast like Freddie Prinze Jr., Matthew Lillard, Atkinson, but still it could not, go to that level where it had to be or it deserved to be. So do you think it was underrated and the movie itself was not that bad?
I think it was hugely underrated. First of all, if you go and you try to cast the Scooby Gang, the Mystery Inc. gang now, you will never get it as right as they did with this. Linda Cardellini as Velma is just note perfect, 100% A-grade casting. Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred Rogers, just it works so well. We didn't think it would, but it does. Even Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, but of course, it's all about Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard, now is a middle-aged character actor on things like Good Girls on TV, but he was so perfect in Scooby-Doo, known largely at the time for things like She's All That and the Scream movies, obviously, as well.
And the resemblance was uncanny between the cartoon characters and the characters that are, played in the movie. It was amazing.
I think they're quite nicely updated as well. I think they do sort of 2002-ize their look. They sort of bring them into the Sugar Ray, what I would refer to as the Sugar Ray era, because Sugar Ray actually do cameo. If you remember the band Sugar Ray, do actually cameo in the film as themselves in just this weirdly brilliant sort of moment of patronizing teen pandering, which I really love, because that is what the movie is about how pop culture brainwashes teenagers. One of the few films at the time that did this. Josie and the Pussycats was another great example of a Hanna-Barbera animated property doing the same kind of thing.
Right. To some critics, this movie is somewhere between a live-action cartoon that's much too scary for the kids and a Saturday Night Live sketch that goes on too long for most teens. That's what you get when you try to reach both younger and older audiences. What is your take on that?
I disagree entirely. First of all, I think it's actually very possible to reach both older and younger audiences alike. And I think literally look at the cinema of Dwayne Johnson. It's entirely crafted around the concept of reaching old and young alike. I think with Scooby-Doo, there is a certain level of sniffiness to it, especially critically. It's not a criticism that's changed over the years either, not even in a revisionist sense with the subsequent success of James Gunn.
Right. And now moving to our next movie, Pacific Rim, which is declared to be too loud and action-packed mixed version of Godzilla meets Transformers. What do you think about that?
I think Godzilla and Transformers, I can sort of, I think it's a bit lazy, of a lazy comparison. I would have gone with Top Gun meets Power Rangers. Wow. It seems to be the more adequate one, because it is basically the exact plot of Power Rangers, but played as if it's as serious as Top Gun. And just loud, crashy, kaiju smashing fun from, visionary director Guillermo del Toro. I know they throw that term around a lot now. You don't see a DC trailer without visionary director Zack Snyder.
Very hard to follow, but still, it managed to catch a lot of eyeballs back then.
It was pretty groundbreaking when it opened. I was 15 when Starship Troopers opened. I remember the very first ad with Blur's Song 2 playing over the top of it. And it is a ludicrous, ridiculous movie, in much the same way that Pacific Rim is a ludicrous, ridiculous movie. However, it's got so much going for it. It is directed by Paul Verhoeven, who, of course, by that point had given us RoboCop and given us Total Recall. It is written by Ed Neumeyer, who gave us a RoboCop as well. It's adapted from classic science fiction novel Robert A. Heinlein, and it's got a cast of up-and-comers who are specifically chosen, as we are told by director Paul Verhoeven, specifically on the basis that they could basically act, but they were very pretty. And that kind of lends itself to what the generally thought of legacy of the film is, which is it's a dumb, pretty movie. Yes, it's very specifically meant to be a movie rooted in the aesthetic and the aesthetic of 1930s German visuals.
Right, and we must appreciate that the special effects for 1997 are pretty much impressive, like way ahead of their time.
They still hold up to this day. I see, I constantly see movies with special effects that do not even compare to Starship Troopers. I showed this to my girlfriend's 15-year-old son, and his response to it was not as positive as I would have liked. But it still goes down relatively well to anybody you show the movie to today, because so much of it is practical, and at the same time it has some groundbreaking CG effect. And that, I think, is down to that Jurassic Park principle of do as much of it practically as you can, and then smooth over the edges with the CGI.
Right, and to some critics, the movie only made to a certain level because of the acting. Had it been released in today's time, these days acting is always compromised. If there is like a whole lot of special effects package in a certain movie, it can cover the loopholes that are created by the acting. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would argue nowadays we care a lot less about performances, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we are very much... I mean, it's worth noting as well, if you did Starship Troopers today, which noticeably is a movie that has never had a proper big-budget blockbuster reboot. It has been rebooted a couple of times in different forms. But if you made Starship Troopers for the very first time today, it would be on a streaming platform, and it would be as part of a commitment to make 6 sequels. And maybe a streaming series spin-off as well. But the performances in it I think now they would be too conscious. The idea that Paul Verhoeven hired specifically dodgy actors, which is, we're being polite about it. I think that they're perfectly fun. They suit the material very well, but I'm very aware that the material has been designed that way. And I think anybody watching the film very quickly gets the idea that this is not being played completely serious. We are sort of being meta. I think nowadays they would think too much about it.
Right. And Van, there's something common about all these three movies that we chose today to review. It's the story being all over the place. It doesn't seem to be, collected. It doesn't seem to be at one page. It's all over the place. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, I disagree. First of all, Scooby-Doo, really fun mystery. It's a fun teen mystery, very much in the style of a classic Scooby-Doo movie. Having said that, it's written by James Gunn. It does get subversive with itself. It does have a neat little twist in the tale as well. And also Rowan Atkinson in there as Mr. Mondavarius. So I think it's just good fun. Pacific Rim is a lot more of a straightforward film. There aren't really many twists and turns in that one. But Starship Troopers is a movie that I would argue is a sharper, more incisive movie, incisive movie as well, today than it was in 1997, because the things it says about propaganda, about how governments can manipulate their people, about populations in times of war and things like that, are things that resonate more with audiences 25 years later for the things that we've seen across the world within the last 25 years than did then.
Right. Van, it was so much fun discussing these movies with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure, Nishu.
That was Van Connor with his reviews on the selected movies. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.
Welcome to the most modern and luxurious gated community in Bahria Town, Karachi. Here, every luxury is at your doorstep. Every facility is within your reach. Every leisure is a few minutes away from you. An international standard hospital with state-of-the-art cardio facility. Pakistan's leading schools and colleges. Bahria Town, Karachi is a gift to the people of Karachi and Sindh, where for the first time in Pakistan, international standard infrastructure and facilities are being provided to the middle class. Bahria Town, Karachi is the safest gated community in Pakistan due to its excellent quality of life and security. Thousands of families live in Bahria Town's housing communities and apartment blocks. Life without fear and danger, and the best lifestyle. Bahria Town, Karachi's bright streets and clean environment offer a view of a well-managed and responsible society. The latest waste management for waste disposal. Mini dams for rainwater storage. Water and sewerage management system. Dedicated grid stations. Bahria Town, Karachi's lifestyle and excellent management is the reason that most of the houses in the whole of Karachi are being built in Bahria Town, Karachi, where due to the best and futuristic planning there is an uninterrupted traffic flow. There are public queues at Bahria Town, Karachi's head offices, transfer counters, and stability in price of properties. Beginning of membership in Pakistan's first 36-holes golf course and completion of clubhouse. Construction of country club and 5-star hotel after possession of plots. Construction of houses in Bahria Golf City is in full swing. Construction of Rafi Cricket Stadium in Bahria Sports City, as well as possession of plots and luxury villas. The world's third largest Grand Mosque is in the final stages of completion, while several other mosques have been completed. Phased occupation also begins in Bahria Heights. Construction of Model Street and Navy Greens. Possession phase of Bahria Paradise Villas also begins. construction of Central Park, New York-style apartments. In Bahria farmhouses, many constructions have been completed while others are underway. Commercial areas of Bahria Town are reaching new heights of success. Hundreds of commercial buildings are making Bahria Town Karachi's new commercial hub. The day and nights of Bahria Town are different. Here, people do not fight for life, but live a full life. They do not fear difficulties, but they gather happiness. It is a city for people who want to live their lives, make their future generations successful, and see their future bright. For a full life and a hopeful future, call 0800 00 100. Bahria Town, Karachi.
Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alnar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you sports information from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That works both for Twitter and Instagram. But anyways, today it's going to be an interesting journey because we're going to take you on a journey of the Winter Sports Association. How we're going to do that? We have a very special guest with us, Air Commodore retired Iftikhar Bajwa, who is president of Islamabad Winter Sports Association, and he has a lot of titles in terms of him representing not only the sports itself in terms of skiing tournaments, but there is so much more that we want to learn from him, and we want the word out to all of you. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, sir, I'll start off with your journey. Obviously, we talk about skiing in Pakistan, the sport itself in Pakistan. How is your passion currently? How did it all start to begin with? Because I'm sure all the viewers out there would want to know.
In 1988, I was a freshly commissioned officer.
Right.
And I wanted to do something like more adventurous. Right. Earlier, while I was doing training, I was doing athletics and other sports.
Right.
But then I decided to go for skiing. And March 88, I went for a course. And then 89 again, I went for another course and interbase championship.
Right.
And luckily, I got a medal, a bronze medal in interbase championship.
Right.
Which actually encouraged me to go further. And we were lucky, 1990 Ski Federation of Pakistan was established. And 1991, there was a first National Ski Championship.
Right.
A very modest beginning, I would say. And I was lucky to be a part of Pakistan Air Force team.
Right.
And I participated in the first championship. And then I participated for, 7 championships,
wow.
national championships. Later, local guys, we opened the sport, the facility to the local children of Naltar who were like always residing there.
Right.
So we gave them an opportunity because we thought that they are more appropriate. Their lungs are like better groomed.
Right.
So we gave them opportunity and they were good. I got retirement after playing 7th national championship. And then I was inducted as a technical delegate, a local technical delegate to conduct the championships.
Right.
And since then, I am on with it. Then I became the executive committee member, and I represented also from Pakistan side in 1996.
Right.
In 10 days of Dawn Championship in Iran.
Right.
We were the very first 2 teams to go. One team went to China for the Asian Winter Games, and the other went to Iran. That was the first year that we saw skiing abroad as competitors. And later on, it just started, it just continued. And I became a technical delegate and I had been always participating. Then I was inducted there as a survival training instructor where I got a lot of opportunity to ski.
Right.
And I was a survival training instructor at Naltar for good 6 years in 2 tenures. And it just continued. And then I think 2002, I went to Iran as a coach with the children team. And same year I went to Japan for an Asian sports instructor seminar.
Right. You have also gotten yourself multiple titles in terms of obviously going abroad, going to different countries. Like you mentioned Iran, you mentioned China, you mentioned Japan. So while participating and representing not only the country of course, your team as a whole, did you get hold of some titles like you mentioned at the start that when the interbase started back in '98, you talked about the bronze medal, but being or having that passion and bringing it to life and then going further ahead, because going internationally is a step further than the local things that you were doing?
In National Ski Championships, yes, I got some medals, bronze medal, 2 silver medals, if I correctly recall.
Right.
And then internationally, it was actually a very, I would say, a humble beginning as far as, because we didn't know skiing, much about skiing when we went abroad, and then we had a chance to look at what skiing is like.
Right.
And then we left, and the next guys, locals from Naltar, they came and we gave them an opportunity. They had a good 2-3 months of training there.
Right.
And then out of those guys, 2 are Olympians, Muhammad Abbas and Muhammad Kareem.
Nice.
And I would say Federation is very proud of producing these Olympians.
Right.
And they participated in Olympics in Vancouver 2010, and Kareem participated in 2014 and 2018.
Right.
And I think Kareem should be going again. And now we have our cross-country guy also qualified. Yeah. So now we have, and maybe there's a girl also who is coming up in figure skating. Maybe she also qualifies, and we take a team of 3 to 4 athletes for Beijing Winter Olympics.
Right. So that's like major achievement in terms of, making those individuals, those raw talent individuals, and, bringing them to life and making them come to a point of representing the country. Briefly, I would want you to not only, besides you just mentioned, obviously, in terms of your achievement, what exactly you as a president of the Samba, the Winter Sports Association, do you, besides getting hold of these individuals and training them for the long run, but what else is, in terms of the mission or the goals that you have to look into as the president?
I took over as president about 2 years back, Islamabad Winter Sports Association. And this winters, I was able to take a team of 22 boys and girls, young boys and girls, to Naltar for a training session of 5 days, which was very useful.
Right.
And my first, I would say, priority is that I'm able to make a formidable team participate in the national championships.
Right.
Of course, the children of northern area, especially Naltar, are very good because they get a better chance to practice. The children of Islamabad and say from the plain areas, they get less opportunity.
Right.
But with the expansion of Ski Federation into Winter Sports Federation, I think the opportunities have gotten broad-based because we have now ice hockey and skating, speed skating. So with these things coming up, I think there is a fairly good chance for the children of other areas to participate in a nice way in the national championship.
Right. And you just mentioned ice hockey. I was also going through news a few days back in terms of a few NGOs also trying to put in the best in terms of, the ice hockey in Chitral and the upper areas. They're trying to promote the sport. Do you see that, the sport like skiing and the adventure sport is going to make a long-term impact in our country and, all the raw talent that we're trying to produce?
I'm very optimistic that, yes, we stand a fairly good chance.
Right.
For the fact that the amount of snow we have and areas we have.
Right.
The only problem in the start is that it started, I would say, late. And also it entails in the start reasonably good investment. Like till this time, there are only 2 places that one can go for skiing. Right. One is Naltar, which is actually a training school of the Air Force, and they spare a lot of, I would say, ski facility for the children to go and ski. We have national championships there.
Right.
But naturally, there are limitations because there's less accommodation. It's not a commercial place as such. Right. The other place is Malam Jabba. Malam Jabba is commercial,
right.
But it's not like very easy for the children to go and ski at their own. It's,
right.
I would say, reasonably expensive. Winter Sports Federation of Pakistan is trying its best to develop another resort which would be actually run like a commercial entity.
Nice.
When that is done, I think there will be a better chance for the children to go and ski, and there will be a better opportunity for the associations to go and make their team practice while they're not participating in other games.
Well, absolutely. That is one interesting, initiative that you just mentioned. We would love that to, even the viewers, I'm sure, would want to know at some point. I don't know if you want to disclose it right now, but it would be super great. One more thing. I mean, like in terms of the youngsters, slowly and gradually, as social media takes over, everybody wants to. A lot of people come up to me asking about Naltar because, we all know how hard it is in terms of going there. And, like you said, people who want to go, it's not very accessible, to be precise.
Yes.
But then you said Malam Jabba. Malam Jabba is kind of accessible but expensive. So the place that you are intending and your team is intending to make, how commercially accessible and financially accessible would be for the youth out there?
There are parties, private parties, looking for the development of a ski resort, and the federation is also making endeavors. The place, first of all, the place has to be accessible in terms of journey.
Right.
Naltar is not that comfortably accessible.
True.
Road is blocked. Maybe weather is not great to fly in and fly out.
Right.
And then Naltar is not commercial. It is definitely an Air Force, Defense Forces institution.
Right.
But they support a lot to the activity.
Right.
We have places. We have. I personally know about 5-7 places that they can be. A very good ski slopes can be developed.
Right.
But then when we talk slopes only, we actually tend to forget one thing, that now we have skating also in Hunza, or those areas where the temperatures, they go below zero and they go far below zero.
Right.
We have ice, and we just accumulate some water, and the ice field is ready, and we can always go ahead with the skating and ice hockey and figure skating and other events. So with these facilities coming up, I think that requirement stays, that we need to have a commercially available place for skiing.
Right.
But then with other things coming up, I think the thing is going broad-based as a whole.
Well, we surely would want to continue this entire journey with you. So we still have with us Air Commodore retired Iftikhar Bajwa, who is actually discussing the world of adventure sports in terms of skiing, and we surely would want to know more from him. We'll take a quick break. Once we get back from the break, there is more coming up your way. So see you guys after the break.
I have been suffering from arthritis for 4 years now. At the age of 14, her eyesight started getting weak. They send me monthly household expenses, rations, and electricity bills. Many thanks to the people of Bahria Town. Thanks to their entire team. Thanks to Malik Riaz. They supported us more than our own relatives. The way they bless people, they did not just make this world, but the one hereafter.
Bahria Town has also taken the responsibility of sponsoring the needy people. This love for the people is the ideology of Bahria Town, and this passion keeps us continuing the service of humanity. Bahria Town, building a new tomorrow.
And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, we are still on that cold, chill journey of skiing when we talk about adventure sports. And we still have with us Air Commodore retired Iftikhar Bajwa. So once again, thank you for being a part of the show. I would want to know, in terms of the Ski Federation of Pakistan, which was, I think, founded back in 1990. I would rather want you to maybe express the brainchild, or how it actually came to life, and who were the initiators who brought it to where it is now.
When I went for the first time for skiing, 88 and then 89, there were talks of developing or establishing a federation. Air Commodore Nonihal Shah, Air Commodore Anwar, late Anwar, he was talking, and he was Officer Commanding Training, and Base Commander was Air Commodore Nonihal Shah.
Right.
So it was Air Commodore Nonihal Shah who established Ski Federation of Pakistan. Before that, skiing in Pakistan actually started, what we have heard is 1950, since 1958.
Right.
It was late Group Captain Shah Khan who started skiing, but then skiing just went on like it was very, I would say, basics of skiing, and it remained rudimentary till we established the federation. And Air Commodore Nonihal Shah worked very hard, I would say, to establish the federation and to get it going. Nowadays he's the senior vice president of the Winter Sports Federation, and he's still contributing and participating in all the activities.
Wow, that's an interesting take, sir. I'm glad that all the viewers out there know that. Sir, I would also want to know, in terms of, we also host events. We also host international, ski, all the adventure sport individuals come to Naltar, or that's something that, I've heard, and, there's so much news about it out there. But because we want to show the world that, how things are in our country in terms of us trying to promote and put in our best to tell that, this is also the things that we do in Pakistan and host events like these. So what's your take on, those individuals and those athletes who actually come to you?
If one has to actually analyze what you've asked, it is better to talk to some mountaineer or a tracker coming from abroad to who's visiting Pakistan.
Right.
They are actually amazed. The amount of potential that we have, the areas we have.
Right.
I would say that we are a little unlucky that we have not so far been very successful in exploiting these potentials.
Right.
So we have a lot of, I would say, great opportunity to exploit mountaineering, mountain trekking, and high altitude marathon. Air Force has started to have international marathon also at Khunjrab or higher altitude, and other adventure activities. So I think the potential is huge. It's just a matter of establishing basic facilities, and naturally security is the first thing. Alhamdulillah, it's been very nice since quite some time now. So I think it's right time that we exploit and we invite people from outside.
Right, and sir, your passion for adventure, when we talk, you talk about pretty much all sorts of adventure. I mean, would you also want to share, because now I can have an idea that there is more to you than just skiing. So what else adventure journeys that you've stepped into as, yourself?
Pakistan Air Force gave me a great opportunity to be a survival training instructor at Naltar. And that actually, I would say, gave me a way towards winter sports and other adventurous activities. I've been doing like skiing, mountain trekking, climbing. I've been to Camp 3 on Gashabram 2 with a foreign team. I've been doing windsurfing, sailing, and other sea activities also.
Right.
So I would say, end of the day, that I'm very thankful to Pakistan Air Force that it gave me an opportunity to be like what foreigners say, that only the sons and daughters of industrialists afford to do it.
Right.
And Air Force gave me an opportunity to do this.
Right, but I'm sure, sir, it's all about the passion, because I think you had the passion, you wanted to pursue it, and it took you further. But in generally, we see a lot of potential. We see a lot of social media upgrowth intakes in terms of people posting pictures of the northern areas of Pakistan, and people trying to market it. There are some ups and downs. Obviously, we sometimes have to point the finger somewhere that, this was where we went wrong. But right now, as you mentioned, we are spot on to the right time. And I think this is the right time, because in terms of the social media, because back then, there wasn't really a huge social media impact. So how do you see, or if we start now, like you said, for instance, you mentioned that, your team intends to actually open up a resort of the sort where people can come and learn skiing. Not only that, ice individually, ice hockey, and all those sports. How do you see it's going to be impactful, and how much time would it take if we start taking that initiative now for the country?
I think this is the right time. I would rather say that we are a bit late already.
Right.
It's time to develop a reasonably big ski infrastructure.
Right.
Because that actually takes a lot of investment. Other facilities do take investment, but not as much as a ski lift.
Right.
In terms of time, I think a couple of years would be enough to establish the basics, because we have to develop a place at a higher altitude where working months are like 6, 7, 8 months. So I think it will take about 2 years of time to develop a ski resort. And I would say there's a dire need to develop a ski resort, without which I don't think that the sport will actually develop the way we expect it to develop.
Right. And sir, I would also want you to, maybe put in the word out there to all the foreign viewers who actually want to visit Pakistan, in terms of, the adventure sport and the adventure journey, because, they still do have questions in terms of coming to Pakistan. Sometimes they think it's going to be technically very hard. But I think the government has also eased in those accessibilities to individuals who actually want to visit Pakistan for adventure.
For foreigners, I would say that when they plan to come to Pakistan, they have a lot of apprehensions. When they come and go back, they go back with a changed, I would say, impression of Pakistan.
Right.
So for Pakistan, what is important is that when we have foreigners, we make such, I would say, arrangements that it's easy and convenient for them to come and visit Pakistan. In terms of coming for skiing to Pakistan, I would say they can come and they can always go to Malam Jabba,
Right.
have a room up there in that hotel and have 2-3 days of good skiing there.
Right.
I think there's a good opportunity for the foreigners to come and ski in Pakistan.
And besides skiing, if they want to come out here for adventure, like you mentioned, trekking, for maybe climbing, I think we still have all those resorts and all those options out there for all the viewers.
In late 90s, 99, 2000 or so time frame,
Right.
I was doing mountaineering. In those days in Gilgit-Baltistan areas, there used to be about 60 to 70 mountaineering expeditions.
Right.
And there used to be about 140, 50 trekking expeditions.
Wow.
They give a lot of job opportunities to the people of the northern areas.
Right.
Down the line, the security went bad, and I would say the tendency decreased.
Right.
Now again, the security situation is good. I would say that foreigners, they should be encouraged to come to Pakistan, and for them doing mountain trekking on one of the say few of the longest glaciers other than North Pole, that is Baltoro, Biafo, Hisper, and these glaciers.
Right.
They can come and do trekking, and they can always attempt mountains.
Well, thank you for that. And I think this input would surely bring in more value then. Sir, I would also want you to take people to the Olympics journey, because when we look back into the first participation in the Summer Olympics was back in 1948, and the first time Pakistan won Summer Olympic medal was in 1956. But slowly and gradually, Pakistan's debut at the winter, that was 2010 if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So how do you see this journey further? And as you mentioned, there are so much talent that you and your association are working on. In the long run, do you see we coming up to that point of the caliber that we can get maybe gold for Pakistan in terms of the Olympics skiing side?
Our first endeavor was to host Pakistan flag in Winter Olympics.
Right.
We tried in 2006, and we could not do it. 2010, Muhammad Abbas, he qualified for Winter Olympics, and we were able to do that.
Right.
And now we have more people who can qualify, and we are the number of athletes is increasing. Looking at the gold in alpine skiing, I think is too far a cry, because the people living in Alps and US, they are too good.
Yeah.
Japan is, I would say, very good. These countries, but then looking at Asian medal first, I think is our priority,
Right.
or regional championships is our priority. And in terms of what we do as federation, we are giving opportunities to the children, boys and girls, to come and have some training and practice with us.
Right.
And then we invite coaches from abroad. We also send teams for coaching to other countries.
Right.
And if we continue the same way, the day is not far that we will be able to win some medal in the Asian Championship. We do win medals in regional cups and these places. Our children, they go and they win medals in regional championships in Lebanon, in Turkey, and these places.
Right.
But having an Asian medal first, I think that would be more important.
Right. And if you just mentioned that you are always open to young raw talent out there. So for instance, if someone wants to reach out and talk to your association or tell your association that sir, we have this individual who has the potential, or this boy, this young girl, and we want your support or help, so how can they actually reach out to you and your team?
They can always contact me, and they can contact Federation.
Right.
Federation's website and everything is available, and Federation would guide those people from, say, Islamabad area, Pindi Islamabad area, to us.
Right.
And this winter I took 2022 guys for training to Naltar. I think people come, and I would appreciate if more young children, they come. I'll be very happy as president of the Winter Sports Association Islamabad.
I'd like to thank you for taking out time and being a part of the show and discussing the world of opportunities that we can do in terms of skiing and the adventure sport. Thank you once again,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
So that was pretty much it in terms of us providing you information about what in Pakistan you can do. And that was Air Commodore retired Iftikhar Bajwa, and it was a great journey discussing the world of Winter Olympics and his winters, the association itself, him being the president. If you think your child or some boy or a girl who has that raw talent, you guys can surely reach out to him. Anyways, guys, if you have any other queries, you guys can reach out to me on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. That works both for Twitter and Instagram. Till then, take good care of yourselves and bye-bye.
Welcome to the most modern and luxurious gated community in Bahria Town, Karachi. Here, every luxury is at your doorstep. Every facility is within your reach. Every leisure is a few minutes away from you. An international standard hospital with state-of-the-art cardio facility. Pakistan's leading schools and colleges. Bahria Town, Karachi is a gift to the people of Karachi and Sindh, where for the first time in Pakistan, international standard infrastructure and facilities are being provided to the middle class. Bahria Town, Karachi is the safest gated community in Pakistan due to its excellent quality of life and security. Thousands of families live in Bahria Town's housing communities and apartment blocks. Life without fear and danger, and the best lifestyle. Bahria Town, Karachi's bright streets and clean environment offer a view of a well-managed and responsible society. The latest waste management for waste disposal. Mini dams for rainwater storage. Water and sewerage management system. Dedicated grid stations. Bahria Town, Karachi's lifestyle and excellent management is the reason that most of the houses in the whole of Karachi are being built in Bahria Town, Karachi, where due to the best and futuristic planning there is an uninterrupted traffic flow. There are public queues at Bahria Town, Karachi's head offices, transfer counters, and stability in price of properties. Beginning of membership in Pakistan's first 36-hole golf course and completion of clubhouse. Construction of country club and 5-star hotel after possession of plots. Construction of houses in Bahria Golf City is in full swing. Construction of Rafi Cricket Stadium in Bahria Sports City, as well as possession of plots and luxury villas. The world's third largest grand mosque is in the final stages of completion, while several other mosques have been completed. Phased occupation also begins in Bahria Heights. Construction of Model Street and Navy Greens. Possession phase of Bahria Paradise Villas also begins. Construction of Central Park New York-style apartments. In Bahria farmhouses, many constructions have been completed while others are underway. Commercial areas of Bahria Town are reaching new heights of success. Hundreds of commercial buildings are making Bahria Town Karachi's new commercial hub. The day and nights of Bahria Town are different. Here, people do not fight for life, but live a full life. They do not fear difficulties, but they gather happiness. It is a city for people who want to live their lives, make their future generations successful, and see their future bright. For a full life and a hopeful future, call 0800 00 100. Bahria Town, Karachi.
Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have declared an amnesty for government employees and urged women to join their government. In a statement, a member of Taliban's Cultural Commission, Inamullah Samangani, said the Islamic Emirate doesn't want women to be victims. This comes after President Joe Biden said he stands squarely behind his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan. In an address from the White House, Biden blamed Afghan political leaders and their army for the Taliban's takeover.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has stressed the need to secure an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. He was speaking to a high-level Afghan delegation led by the Speaker of Walisi Jirga in Islamabad. Khan said no other country is more desirous of peace and stability in Afghanistan than Pakistan. Separately, he held telephone conversation with UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson to discuss the latest situation in Afghanistan. In Niger, officials say 37 people have been killed in a militant attack in the western Tillaberi region. They said armed men sped into a village on motorbikes on Monday afternoon, shooting people as they worked in their fields. 13 of the dead are children. A human rights group, Fortify Rights, says ethnic Karen commanders in Myanmar have admitted that their forces killed 25 men in June. The commanders deny wrongdoing, saying the men were spies for the military, which seized power in February and detained elected leaders. The rights group says the killings amount to a war crime. In the Kashmir Premier League, Rawalakot Hawks are batting against Muzaffarabad Tigers in the final of the tournament in Muzaffarabad. Hawks batsman Ahmed Shahzad is not playing due to a fractured finger. And now we're taking you live to Kabul, where Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing.
نور چاته اندېښنې پیدا کیږي موږ ډاډ ورکوو چې د ښځو په وړاندې به هیڅ نوع تاوتریخوالی نه کیږي هیڅ نوع تبعیض ته به اجازه نه ورکول کیږي البته اسلامي اصول یو چوکاټ ده چې هغه باید زموږ سره نړیوال هم تسلیم کړي او زموږ هیوادوال هم مني زموږ ښځې مسلمانې دي هغوی غواړي چې خپل ژوند د اسلام او د شریعت په چوکاټ کې عیار کې هغسې ژوند تیر کړي. موږ امیدوارو چې کله افغانستان له جګړې نه راوځي موږ د اقتصادي زیربنا او د بیرته جوړېدا او د جنګ له غورانیو نه د بیرته راوتا په خاطر جدي اقتصادي ګامونه واخلو. له نړیوالو هیوادونو سره مخکې زموږ تعاملات په درناوي بناو له ګڼو هیوادونو سره ما په دې باندې خبره کړې ده چې افغانستان ته اقتصادي منابع متوجه کړي او په افغانستان کې پانګونه وکړي د افغانستان له اقتصاد سره مرسته وکړي زموږ د هیواد په بیرته رغونه او آبادي کې موږ سره همکار اوسیږي. په همدې خاطر اسلامي امارت ټول هیوادوال ته ډاډ ورکوي چې انشاءالله موږ به وسو کولی په ډېر لنډ وخت کې او په لنډو کلونو کې خپل هیواد تغییر کو او مثبت تغییر د ټولو خلکو اقتصادي وضعیت به ښه کیږي ځکه موږ یو شی حس کوو چې هر افغان د خپل شخصي ژوند ښه کول غواړي کله چې دا احساس له افرادو نه راټولیږي په ټولنه کې بدلیږي.
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is saying the world has witnessed our 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. Sovereign Afghanistan is the right of every Afghani citizen. Our forces will ensure security of every Afghan national.
خلکو خدمت کوي چې هغه متحد وي هغه د خلکو خادم وي په خلکو باندې مسلط نه وي بلکې د خلکو د ګټو لپاره د دنیا او آخرت د ښېګڼو لپاره کار وکړي انشاءالله.
Zabihullah Mujahid said very soon we will be witnessing the formation of an Islamic government in Afghanistan. He assured the international community that nobody will be harmed. He also said the Taliban will not allow anyone to use their soil against any country.
او البته درې غوښتنې موږ له رسنیو لرو هیله کوو چې دا د دوی د
Mujahid said the group is committed to ensure the rights of women under the Islamic law.
ارزښت ده د اسلام د اصول خلاف او د اسلامي ارزښتونو خلاف نشرات په افغانستان کې کېدل دا به طبیعي خبره چې رسنۍ زموږ سره نه ومناسبې کړي بناء د اسلامي ارزښتونو په چوکاټ کې دننه ټول ازادي رسنۍ لري کولی چې آزاد راپورونه ورکړي آزاد پروګرامونه جوړ کړي او آزاد خپرونې وکړي.
Zabiullah Mujahid is saying that with the help of international community, we will bring peace and stability in Afghanistan. We pardon everyone that stood against us. Live images coming to you from Kabul, where Zabiullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing. Zabiullah Mujahid is saying the world has witnessed over 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. He also stated that sovereign Afghanistan is the right of every Afghani citizen. Our forces will ensure security of every Afghan national. Moreover, he also stated that with the help of international community, we will ensure peace and stability in the region. Zabiullah Mujahid is stating that the past Afghan government did not do any justice to the Afghani future.
رسنۍ به موږ ته رسنۍ هلته یادېږي نومان اخیستل کېږي زه تاسو ځواب وایم یو شی تاسو ته ووایم چې زه به انشاءالله ستاسو په خدمت کې یم.
Live images coming to your screen from Kabul, where Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid stated that the world has witnessed a 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. He also said that sovereign Afghanistan is the right of every Afghan citizen. He also stated that our forces will ensure security of every Afghan national. With the help of the international community, we will ensure peace and stability in the region. We pardon everyone that stood against us. He also said that the past Afghan government did not do any justice or good to the Afghanistan. He also stated that we will make sure that we provide security to the foreign diplomats.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Ballas. I'm with Al Jazeera English. I want to talk to you about women's rights and girls' rights. I'm concerned about whether women will be allowed to work, that girls can still go to school.
Zabiullah Mujahid stated that very soon we will be witnessing the formation of an Islamic government in Afghanistan. He also assured the international community that nobody will be harmed. He also said the Taliban will not allow anyone to use their soil against any country. Mujahid also stated the group is committed to ensure the rights of women under the Islamic law.
تاسو کوم ضمانت ورکوي چې ښځه به حق لري کار ته ولاړ شي او سبق ووایي او داسې نور حقوق څه کوم
بلې د ښځو په وړاندې زموږ دریځ ما مخکې بیان کړ چې موږ به انشاءالله د شریعت په چوکاټ کې ښځو ته د کار او فعالیت اجازه ورکوو.
Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid stated that Afghanistan is an independent state now under the Taliban rule.
البته د شریعت چوکاټ په داخل
women will be afforded all their rights, whether it is in work or other activities, because women are a key part of society. And we are guaranteeing all their rights within the limits of Islam.
Mr. Mujahid, dear panel, ABC News from America. Can I ask you, what guarantees can you give to the Afghans who fought with the Americans, the interpreters? Because all the people question, you're telling them, so we don't have the right. What guarantees will you give to the Afghans who are now hiding at home, who want to leave the country, who the Americans will transport? They can't get to the airports. What guarantees? I'm sorry.
Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid also said, in response to a question, women play an important role in the progress and development of country. Their rights will be protected.
They've asked me to ask you whether you will now commit to release them.
دوه پښتنې دي یو داسې هغه خلکو ترجمانی کړې ده امریکایانو سره یا نور کارونه کړي دي هغوی د امنیت په باره څه ډاډ ورکولی شي او دویمه پوښتنه دا ده
He also stated that we will make sure that the right of every citizen is protected.
سوال اول درباره رفتنشان به خارج که میرن آیا میتونن به خاطر آرام از کشور برای سفر بکنن؟ در این مورد میخوایم که اطمینان بتون به تمام هموطنای ما که در صف مقابل بودند چه ترجمان بوده چه فعالیت
Zabihullah Mujahid stated that the current leader Ashraf Ghani fled away from the country.
نمیخوایم با هیچ کسی برخورد انتقام جویانه داشته باشیم و میخوایم جوانایی که استعداد دارن در اینجا بزرگ شدن خاک افغانستان خاک خودشان است این خاک را ترک بکنن یا جای دیگر برن این را نمیخوایم هرگز نمیخوایم این سرمایه ما هستند باید در کشور بانن ما از تریبیون شما به تمامشان اطمینان میتیم که عقب خانه آنها یک کسی نمیره که وارد تفتیش بکنه یا از وا سوال بکنه که چرا در افغانستان حمایت کردن یا ترجمه کردن به هر صورت بازم از تریبیون شما برشان اطمینان میتیم که به خاطرشان هیچ خطری متوجه نیست و در مورد قراردادی
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid stated that past government and former Afghanistan president left our country in chaotic situation.
Mr. Mujahid says that we are assuring the safety of all those who have worked with the United States and allied forces, whether as interpreters or any other field that they have worked with them. As for their talents and their skills, we do not want them to leave the country. We want them to serve their own homeland. As for the contractor that was perhaps he's gone missing, as reported by the media. We do not have any information about him at the moment.
In response to a question, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid stated, "We are assuring the safety of all the forces who worked in collaboration with the United States."
بله د تاسو له لارې نه غوته اطمینان ورکو سراس خپل کورونو ته هیڅوک په غو باندې کار نه لري د اسلامي امارت مشرتابه امر کړی چې په کابل کې هیڅوک هم
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the Afghan people will see positive change that will be reflected in their daily lives. After the war ends, we will focus on restoring infrastructure and development projects.
نه تهدیدي او بیا وایم چې تاسو په کراتو ولیدل چې په زورګونو عسكر چې موږ سره جنگیدلی وو زموږ وینې توې کړې وه په دې هېواد کې د بهرنیو سره ولاړو شل کاله جنګ کړی وو ولې کله چې زمان راغی چې اشغال پای ته ورسېده موږ هغو ټول ته عفوه کړې ده بناءً کومې کورنۍ چې په میدان هوایي کې د ویرې له وجې نه هلته انتظار کوي د تګ باید دا اوس بیرته راوګرځي خپلو کورونو ته هېڅوک هغوی نه تعقیبوي هېڅوک هغو ته ضرر نه رسي موږ ډاډ ورکوو چې د عمر دپاره به څوک هغو ته ور نه شي چې تاسو چې کړي وو یا څه نه وکړي هیله کوم چې هغه مطمئن سي او ویره ونه لري په نوبت سره کې په نوبت سره
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the Taliban will remain in contact with the media that will operate freely. He said the Taliban will not allow anyone to spread strife on the basis of race or religion. And we want a united Afghanistan for all.
یک سوال خوب است یک سوال نوبت برای شما میدانم که نمیشه باید یادآور شوم که ما خو امر عفو قرار میدیم ایرا به نفع صلح و ثبات در افغانستان میدانیم.
Live images coming to your screen from Kabul where Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing. Zabihullah Mujahid urged women play an important role in the progress and development of country and their rights will be protected.
البته
He also stated that our corrupt leader, President Ashraf Ghani, fled away from the Afghanistan, leaving country in chaos. He also stated we are assuring the safety of all the forces who worked in collaboration with the United States.
اگر با کسی بدون اختیار یک حالت اضطراری یا حالتی که غیر قابل کنترل بود زیان دیده باشه قابل تاسف است. ما این از عوارض جانبی جنگ میدانیم و هیچ جنگی بدون ازی شده نمیتونه، ولی 100% اطمینان میده که هیچ حمله ما هم علیه مردم ملکی و علیه مردمی که در جنگ دخیل نبودن قصدی نبوده. با اساس بعضی از مشکلات بوده که یا با اساس مشکلات تکنیکی رخ داده و یا با اساس مشکلات دیگری که باز هم قابل تاسف است و ما میخواهیم که آنها
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is saying the Taliban will not allow anyone to use their soil against any country. He also said the group is committed to ensure the rights of women under the Islamic law. He assured the international community that nobody will be harmed. He also stated very soon we will be witnessing the formation of an Islamic government in Afghanistan.
ببخشید آرامش تعریف کنین. ببخشید.
مجاهد صاحب نن دریم ورځ ده چې کابل ښار ته طالبان داخل شوي دي تقریبا درې ورځې وشوې تاسو مخکې
Live images coming to your screen from Kabul where Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing. Zabihullah Mujahid stated that the world has witnessed our 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. Sovereign Afghanistan is the right of every Afghani citizen. He also stated our forces will ensure security of every Afghan national. Past Afghan government did not do any justice to the Afghanistan.
د دې وضعیت د کنټرول لپاره موږ مجبور اوسو ډېر جدي چلند وکړو. اوسنی حالت د کم وخت لپاره ده، ډېر زر ښار بیرته عادي حالت ته راګرځي. زموږ ځواکونه فقط په اضطراري حالت کې دي چې وضعیت کنټرول کړي. هغه خلک چې بې ثباتي راپېښوي یا د خلکو په وړاندې درېږي، د خلکو ځورونې ته لاس اچوي، د هغو کنټرول وکړو. د دې په خاطر موږ مجبور وضعیت نظامي وساتو د لنډو ورځو دپاره. بیرته به ښار عادي کېږي. ټولې حوزې فعالیت یې اوس شروع کړی ده او موږ
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid also stated we are assuring the safety of all the forces who work in collaboration with the United States.
په غیر شرعي توګه باید نه استعمالي. البته که په موټرو کې ګرځېدا ده، اسلحه ګرځول دي او اوس که دا نه وي طبیعي خبره ده موږ تاسې امن چې کوم لرو یا ورته سترګې په لاره یو چې امنیت راسي، د دې موږ نه چکتنان کوي. دا اړتیا او ضرورت دی. بل
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. عبدالرحیم سائل مجموعه څخه زما یو لایق پوښتنه دا ده چې له خلکو سره
Taliban spokesperson in response to a question stated that peace and stability in the region is the prime goal of a government.
تاسو ته باید یادونه وکړم چې د افغانستان خاوره آزادول یو لوی ارزښت او لوی هدف و او خاوره آزادول هلته بشپړېدلی سوی چې اشغالګر او د هغو تتیمت دواړه باید ختم سوي وای. کله دلته موږ د اشغالګرو هغه لاسپوڅې په واک کې پرېښې وای، د اشغال موخې به په خپل ځای وي. موږ نشو کولی دلته اسلامي حکومت جوړ کړو او تاسیس یې کړو. د دې مخه نیول سوی وه. تاسې لیدل چې له موږ نه مخکې ادارې تر آخري ورځې پورې د جنګ خبرې کولې. مذاکرات جریان درلود. 18 میاشتې کېږي په قطر کې زموږ استازي ناست دي او قوي ټیم لرو
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid stated the Afghan people will see positive change that will be reflected in their daily lives. After the war ends, we will focus on restoring infrastructure and development projects. Mujahid also stated that the Taliban will remain in contact with the media that will operate freely. He said the Taliban will not allow anyone to spread strife on the basis of race or religion, and we want a united Afghanistan for all.
قدرت غوښتنې مبارزه نه و دا د اسلامي حاکمیت د جوړېدو مبارزه و او که موږ پوه شو چې ما سواله موږ نه بل څوک اسلامي حکومت دلته جوړولی شو موږ حاضر یو چې هغه دلته حاکمان کړو په هر صورت اوس امید کېږي زموږ ملت او زموږ د مبارزینو زموږ د مجاهدینو چې اسلامي حکومت به جوړېږي هغه دا کسان چې نن سبا به یې تاسې وینئ خو په هر صورت موږ غواړو چې داسې حکومت او نظام آینده کې جوړ شي چې ټول جهتونه پکې ځان وویني ټول جهتونه پکې شامل وي او له بېلابېلو جهتونو سره تفاهم موږ ته ورسېږو د جنګ دوام نه غواړو د افغانستان سوله او ثبات
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid in response to a question stated, we hope for the better future of Afghanistan.
د برخلیک په اړه ځکه پوښتنه مه کوئ چې هغه پخپله ملامت وو هغوی د افغانستان د خلکو په ضد موقف له دغه تربیونه نیولی وو له دغه جنه به د جنګ خبرې کولې او د سولې خبرې لکه راځئ چې نن تاسو ته وایم له قوت سره هم راغلي یو له جګړې سره هم راغلي یو تاسو قوت
And we will ensure peace in Afghanistan and also in the region.
موږ د تکبر خبره نه کوو موږ د جنګ خبره نه کوو مقابل جهات مو د عفو خبره کړې ده له ټولو سره د نیک تعامل برخورد کوو ښار کې مو مجاهدینو ته امر کړی چې د هېچا کور ته لاړ نه شي چې یا دولتي کارمند یا وسله ورسره ده یا موټر ورسره ده څوک تهدید نه کړي دا زموږ پیغام ده هیله کوو چې دا پرتله تاسې وکړئ بیا به د مخکې څوک دلته ناست و د هغه او زما ترمنځ توپیر اسانه شي
We pardon everyone that stood against us, especially the Americans and their allies.
کله چې نظام جوړ شي هغوی کې به ټول ونډه لري افغانان به بېلابېل دلایل لري د خپل موقف لپاره هغوی ته به دا شی پرېږدي
Peace and stability in the region is the prime goal of our government.
بیرغونه په خپل حال دي ولې کله چې نظام جوړ شي هغوی په دې اړه تصمیم نیسي زبیدی صاحب سوال خود زیدی صاحب بله
فرق بین طالبان 1990 چیه؟ چی تغییرات آمد در بین؟
بله اگر این سوال به اساس ایدئولوژی و مفکوره و یا عقیده و باور شوه تفاوتی وجود نداره چون ملت ما 20 سال قبل مسلمان بود امی بچه‌ها و اولادایشان از آل هم مسلمانای هستند امو باور و عقیده خود دارند ولی به اساس پختگی به اساس تجربه به اساس بینش اگر محاسبه بکنیم بدون شک تفاوت‌های زیاد وجود دارد این به اساس است که انشالله گام‌های فعلی با گام‌های قبلی تفاوت مثبت خواهد داشت
where he stated that we are ensuring the safety of all the forces who worked in collaboration with the United States. Peace and stability in the region is the prime goal of the government. He also stated we hope for the better future of Afghanistan and we will ensure peace in Afghanistan and the region.
حکومت آینده ای مسئولیت داشته باشه که پاسخگوی تمام مردم ما باشه.
Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid is holding a media briefing in Kabul where he said the world has witnessed our 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. Sovereign Afghanistan is the right of every Afghani citizen. He also stated our forces will ensure security of every Afghan national. We pardon everyone that stood against us. Well, those were the live images coming to your screen from Kabul, where Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid was holding a media briefing, where he stated that the world has witnessed our 20-year struggle to get independence in Afghanistan. He also stated that we are assuring the safety of all the forces who worked in collaboration with the United States. Peace and stability in the region is the prime goal of a government. Well, that's the latest we have. We will keep you updated in our upcoming broadcast.
Welcome to In Focus with Ejaz Haider. We continue with our coverage of the evolving situation in Afghanistan. Here's what has happened so far. Taliban are in full control of the capital, Kabul. Former President Ashraf Ghani has fled the country, according to the spokesperson of the Russian embassy in Kabul, with bags of cash. Former Afghanistan President Hamid Karzai, Chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, Dr. Abdullah Abdullah, and Hizb Islami leader Gulbuddin Hekmatyar have put together a transition council to negotiate with Taliban leadership for moving towards the next phase of political settlement. The three also left for Doha earlier today to meet with the Doha Shura. In the interim, both Karzai and Abdullah have issued statements asking Kabulis and other Afghans to not panic and wait for the results of a negotiated settlement. Both have criticized Ghani for fleeing the country. Ghani and his army also face criticism from US President Joe Biden, who called Ghani's dispensation corrupt and lacking the will to stand ground. French President Emmanuel Macron has said the EU will launch an initiative to thwart the arrivals of Afghan refugees. Let it be noted that these are very countries that want Pakistan to keep its borders open for more Afghan refugees. The Taliban spokesperson Sohail Shaheen has said the war is over and the type of rule and the form of regime will be clear soon. Earlier today, Russian ambassador to Afghanistan, Dmitry Zenov, met a Taliban representative to discuss security for the diplomatic mission and other matters. However, a Russian foreign ministry statement says the situation in Kabul is stabilizing and that the militants have started to restore public order. On Monday, Chinese spokesperson Hua Chunying stated that, and I quote from what she said, China welcomes the Taliban's promise that they will allow no force to use the Afghan territory. She also said China hopes to be involved in Afghanistan's peace and reconciliation process and play a bigger role in future reconstruction and economic development. Pakistan's mission and staff continue to work in Kabul and have provided assistance to a number of Afghans and other foreigners desiring to leave the country. We'll get some more details on the round-the-clock work the mission staff have been doing. Pakistan is also hosting an Afghan political delegation in Islamabad as part of its efforts to facilitate a political settlement in that country. Let's dive right into our discussion. I'm joined by Amina Janjua, former Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Zamir Akram, former diplomat with long experience of bilateral and multilateral diplomacy, and Musharraf Zaidi, founder and senior fellow at the Bad Lab, an Islamabad-based think tank. Thank you to all my guests. Let me begin with Ambassador Janjua. Ambassador Janjua, let's talk about the role Pakistan is playing to facilitate a settlement and also the current role on the ground being played by the Pakistani mission in Kabul to help stranded people with visas, etc.
A lot of what Pakistan's role is in this regard in setting up of a government in Afghanistan is not Pakistan's role. It is the Taliban themselves and the Afghans who have to decide on what kind of government they want. And they have spoken about it clearly. And that is why in recent interviews, the Prime Minister has also said that it's up to the Taliban on how they want to move as far as the establishment of the government is concerned. At the same time, we have had this press release of the National Security Committee, which met yesterday, in which certain principles were identified as far as Pakistan's relationship with whoever is going to be in power in Afghanistan. Number one principle is that Pakistan desires peace and stability. Number two, Pakistan desires and would like to have an inclusive political settlement representing all ethnic groups, and this is also reflective of the political delegation that is in Pakistan, in which leaders from a number of political parties and political groups have arrived, and who we hope will have a role in what the future dispensation in Kabul will be. Thirdly, it talks about non-interference, and that there should be a role, an emphasis on having a role for women in Afghanistan. And finally, so these are the points, these are the principles that the National Security Committee outcome document or statement says. The important thing for us is to highlight the fact that the strategic objective is to have, as far as Pakistan is concerned, is to have a stable Afghanistan that can go and proceed then on an economic stabilization program, which would be good for both Pakistan and the entire region. So as far as Pakistan is concerned, I'm quite convinced that the lesser we say, the better. Whatever's been said by the Security Council the Security Committee of Pakistan has already been said. But the most important thing is that we need to be cautious. It's a very fragile situation in Afghanistan. As far as the US is concerned, Biden is blaming the Taliban. The West is soul-searching as far as what is happening, and they're wondering what could have been done. You've already spoken about China and Russia. The Security Council has met, and let's not forget that the person occupying the seat of the Security Council for Afghanistan was a representative of the government that is left, Mr. Ghani's government, that is not there anymore. So the Taliban have to prove themselves to be worthy of this seat as well. And this is what Russia has said as well. And as far as question of recognition and other questions are concerned, they will have to be, the government in Kabul will have to be determined by their conduct. There's, I think, as far as the entire situation is concerned, the lesser we say, the better it is. And because there is no need for us to get in the middle of the internal politics in the US, which people are sort of hitting at each other. So the best thing is to stick to a few words and keep our direction straight. As well as the embassy is concerned, the embassy is open. Our consulates in Afghanistan are open, and they're providing services to whoever wants to read visas, any other kind of help that is required by Afghan nationals or internationals to come to Pakistan. So that is being done, and there are very few embassies that are open, and ours is amongst them.
Right. Let me pull in Musharraf Zaidi here. Musharraf, the TTA, which now, of course, calls itself the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, need three things. And these are not just political things, they're existential for them going forward. Legitimacy and international recognition. Money, because that's important for governance. And, of course, internal political balance. And internal political balance, especially in the non-Pashtun areas, because that balance is already tenuous. They are in control of some very heavy Tajik and heavy Uzbek areas. And Sohail Shaheen is already on record as having said more than once that we are not going to go by the old formula of monopolization or centralization because that never worked, and it's not going to work now. So there is a sense that they want to have some kind of inclusive setup. And I think one of the reasons that they have not declared victory per se, and you know they're dealing with the Transition Council is also that. Interestingly enough, and which is a very good sign, one of their delegations went to an Imam Bargah in Kabul. They were there. They assured everyone the safety and the freedom to perform their rituals. So do you get a sense, or you see signs that their insistence on inclusivity is a recognition of these realities?
It's an important question, and I'm not sure that we're at a stage right now where we can answer it definitively, but the early signs seem to be very, very encouraging. Alhamdulillah. I say alhamdulillah for many reasons, but the most important is that the value of what the Taliban is doing in Afghanistan for violent extremists or extremists of any ilk in the rest of the Muslim world is huge. And so I think the fact that it's demonstrating this inclusivity is valuable. Not only did they go to an Imam Bargah, but they also went and engaged with the Hindu and Sikh communities in Kabul and assured them of their protection and their safety. I think those are good starting points, but it's day two. And there's a lot more that they have to do in terms of inclusivity for us to be convinced. Again, another really good sign was we've seen now demonstrable proof that Tolo News, among many other private media outlets, is broadcasting as per usual. Female anchors and reporters are on screen engaging directly with Taliban representatives and also on the streets of Kabul. I think that in and of itself is a huge confidence booster. But, you know, what happens in Kabul is one element of a wider set of data points that will only be able to make a judgment on once we have them. There's 34 provinces. It remains to be seen that the ground forces of the Taliban have the sophistication, the wisdom, and the understanding that clearly the Doha Shura and the leaders in Kabul today are demonstrating.
Right. Ambassador Akram, Ambassador Janjua talked about the UN Security Council session. She also talked about the fact that the permanent representative representing Afghanistan is someone whose government does not have a president. The president has fled. So that's one point, and I think this was a point that was raised by Ambassador Munir Akram, who's our permanent representative. But the issue that I want to raise with you has to do with the fact that after assuming the rotative presidency of the UN Security Council, India is being overtly custard. This is the second time it denied Pakistan a chance to present its case, and the second time they also denied Iran to present their case and their viewpoint on the evolving situation in Afghanistan. So give me your sense of how that can be tackled. Of course, I mean, Ambassador Akram, did a press conference and talked about these things, but it's very clear that for the next 3 weeks or so that India is there as the president, Pakistan is not going to get a chance to present its case in the UN Security Council.
Jaz, I'm not surprised at all that the Indians are acting in the way they are. We should not have expected anything better from them. But at the end of the day, it just goes to show that because of India's obstinate behavior, the debate in the Security Council is sterile. Because if you don't have one of the main players in the council meeting, the validity and the usefulness, utility of a Security Council debate on Afghanistan is that much reduced. That said, I think that Pakistan's point of view has been expressed and has been heard by the members of the Security Council and the UN General Assembly through the intercessions by our permanent representative, both through the media and through his statements.
Were pretty stark. So very quickly, because I've run out of time and I need to go back to Ambassador Janjua also, if it's about democratic choices and stability, if that is the choice, which side of the coin would you fall for?
Well, I would say that the world, particularly Afghanistan, are multicolored. They're not black and white, and therefore I'm not sure the choice is Ashraf Ghani versus the Taliban. I think the choice is the Afghan people, the Afghan people, and the Afghan people. And of course, because it's a big country, we think of ourselves as a small country. We're a massive country, but Afghanistan's a country of almost 40 million people. By no stretch of the imagination, a small country, an extremely diverse one. And as long as the Taliban demonstrate the capacity to ensure that every Afghan citizen is able to express themselves and live their free life, then I think we won't have a problem. How they evolve their institutions is a grave responsibility now that falls on the shoulders of Habatullah Akhundzada, Mullah Baradar on the Taliban side, but particularly I think right now the three-member commission that you mentioned.
Into the three-member commission, lots of other political leaders. But let me just clarify that the Iran analogy was a very loose one. I didn't want to press it, but for want of another analogy, I thought I'll throw it in. Very quickly, Ambassador Janjua, in a couple of minutes. One breaking news that's coming in has to do with the fact that the terrorist group, the regrouped Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, has renewed its allegiance to Afghan Taliban, and it has pledged its support. This is as per the terrorist TTP spokesperson, pledging support to strengthen the Islamic Emirate in Afghanistan. Since Musharraf talked about chickens coming home to roost, I just want to get your quick view on how Pakistan is supposed to deal with this.
One of the elements that I did not say earlier in the press release that came out of the National Security Committee, the Prime Minister led, was that an assurance that the Afghan soil will be not used against anyone, and terrorists will be, let's say that terrorists will be not be undertaking activities against any other country. And this is one of the assurances that, of course, our government will seek from the Taliban once they're in place, and because this is a critical element. It is not just for us, the TTP, that we have to look at. The Chinese have the ETIM that they have to look at. The Russians and the Uzbeks have the IMU to look at. So the Taliban will have to take some very strong positions or clear positions with regard to these terrorist elements that are being allowed to exist in Afghanistan.
Right. Thank you so much. That was Ambassador Tamina Janjua. Thank you also to Musharraf Zaidi for his insights. We shall take a short break and return to discuss the terrible plight of women in India. Stay with us.
I have been suffering from arthritis for 4 years now. At the age of 14, her eyesight started getting weak. They send me monthly household expenses, rations, and electricity bills. Many thanks to the people of Bahria Town. Thanks to their entire team. Thanks to Malik Riaz. They supported us more than our own relatives. The way they bless people, they did not just make this world, but the one hereafter.
Bahria Town has also taken the responsibility of sponsoring the needy people. This love for the people is the ideology of Bahria Town, and this passion keeps us continuing the service of humanity. Bahria Town, building a new tomorrow.
Welcome back to In Focus. Asha, a Dalit girl, was 9. She left her Delhi home to get water for the family. She did not return. According to reports in the Indian and international media, she was found dead, and later her body was forcibly cremated in an apparent move to hide the evidence. According to her mother, a priest told her that Asha had died of electrocution. Later he told her to let the matter rest. Campaigners allege that in many cases, even the police prefer not to know. Some rights groups say that while India abolished discrimination on the basis of caste in 1948, statistics show that every day 10 Dalit or untouchable women and children are raped, and the problem is getting worse. A similar case happened in October 2020 in Hathras district of UP. A Dalit girl was gang raped and later her body cremated by the police against the wishes of her family. The case had outraged rights groups within and outside India. While South Asia as a whole has a low record when it comes to protecting women and their rights, and that includes Pakistan, India seems to lead the unfortunate trend. To discuss this further, I am joined by Dr. John Dayal, an Indian human rights and political activist. Dr. Dayal is also a member of the National Integration Council of India, and Ravi Shrivastava, a political and economic affairs commentator. Let me, before I get to my panelists, according to some later reports, the girl's parents have accused a Hindu priest and 3 others of attacking her, that's Asha, the deceased girl, when she had gone to fetch drinking water from the crematorium's cooler. And according to her mother, the gates were shut. and she was threatened when she objected to her daughter's cremation. Dr. Dayal, as I said, it's an unfortunate thing that, this part of the world, South Asia as a whole, and we have had cases in Pakistan which are, which have been terrible, purely going by statistics. India seems to be leading the trend, and I find this kind of strange because India also has a very strong tradition of rights groups and people agitate. There was an unfortunate rape and murder of a girl in Delhi some years ago, and there were women and others, they were out and they were agitating and they were forcing the government to take action, and yet the trend seems to be moving up rather than moving down.
I would not like to say that this is a coefficient of the fact that India has such a large population. I mean, that would be a very fallacious argument. Or even to say that Muslims and Christians and Dalits and tribals and women in general are getting raped, because that also would be a fallacious argument, because while the 2012 rape, which is called the Nirbhaya case, which brought about changes in the law and which got 4 people hanged because the mother and the family were so persistent, despite some of us saying that the death penalty does not solve anything, does not reduce anything. And it will be fallacious of me again and cynical to say that we told you so. But the point really is that women and children, particularly of the lowest rung of society, in caste, the Dalits, in the economic weaker sections, residents of slums and villages, in ethnicity, people in tribal areas, they do suffer sexual violence much more than the numbers would say. And India really is home to a very large number of rapists. As you said, we have 88 rape cases a day in 2020, for which there is official data, which is very, very much, and maybe 35,000 or so total cases, of which almost 15% come from the Dalit community. And this is terrible. And this is only the recorded cases. The cases where the police don't register it at all or falsify it or whatever. So these numbers really mean nothing. The reality is rape is a very real thing and a very painful reality for those at the bottom of India's social and economic pyramid. Over the years, laws have harshened. Penalties are now almost death if there's a Dalit victim and if a case is proved in court. But immunity, impunity, the lack of forensic sciences brought to bear on investigations, the lack of empathy in the police force itself, the total shoddy manner in which cases are brought to courts and then are dismissed. And then lastly, the court's attitude to rape. We have high courts judges, district court judges, making all sorts of crazy, what should I say, judgments and oral rulings when they give the judgments, asking in other cases for the rapist to marry the victim and so on and so forth. So the whole environment, despite the public outrage which is visible, seems to be to brush it under the carpet. And that is the sore and I must say, tearful reality.
Right. I'm going to return to you, Dr. Dayal, with a couple of other questions, but let me pull in Mr. Shrivastava here. Mr. Shrivastava, what are your thoughts about this? The disadvantaged, of course, there is a trend, and it can happen to anyone, even in the upper classes, but there is certainly a trend where one can say that the disadvantaged classes, whether they are disadvantaged on the basis of caste, or whether they are disadvantaged on the basis of the fact that they live in the periphery, or on the basis of their religion, it does seem to me that that has an impact on how they get treated when it comes to sexual and other types of violence.
As John has amply stated about the situation in India. The fact is, there is one more reason that in past, such cases were buried and were not coming to light. But of late, with education and enlightenment, I think, and rights group getting stronger day by day, most of things are surfacing. Fact is that there is a complicity of the upper caste people, the police, and I would call that sometimes judiciary is also not very clear and giving all kind of erratic judgments as well. He rightly mentioned the case of Nirbhaya in 2012, 9 years before. It took almost that parent 7.5 years to fight in the courts, up to High Courts, Supreme Court, lower court, everywhere to get those people punished, out of which I think one died in the jail itself. Now you have mentioned other 2 cases. It happened in Hathras in October 20, and you have seen the way the victim's body, the raped one, was burnt at 3 o'clock in the night. As per Hindu rituals, the bodies are not burnt after the sunset. And she was burnt at 3 o'clock in the night in the presence of the police personnel. And the police said that they got instructions from their higher-ups to finish up the whole thing in this manner. And there were a lot of hue and cry across the nation about it. It's a BJP-ruled state. I would say that the record of certain states is very, very poor in India, especially UP, MP, Rajasthan, and these are the few 4-5 states which have a decimal record as far as this, punishing this particular crime is concerned. John has also rightly said that the hanging the people, Phansi, is not the ultimate solution of this particular malaise. But the fact is that such cases, the number of the statistics which he has provided, hardly 15 to 20% ultimately get punished. And the kind of judicial processes, the time taken, the shoddy forensic analysis, the time lost after the rape and the expose, the whole thing has become such a shoddy affair that this does not reach to any conclusion. In Delhi case, the recent one which we are referring to, you may recall another case of Asifa, the 8-year-old girl from Bakarwal community in Jammu. She was in another heinous crime, and she was also killed and buried. Here, this girl who had gone to fetch water, and that particular priest, the pujari of the temple of the crematorium, tells the mother that, you will not get anything out of it if you go to police and all. It will be all buried and nobody will be brought to book. Such kind of either threat or coercion or cajoling, whatever he did, and he cremated the body of the girl, and there are no, physical evidences available for further investigation. So
absolutely,
what I'm saying
and I
is
think
that the laws.
That's one of the things that is being agitated. I'm sorry, I'm sort of fast-pacing it because I'm left with just 2 or 3 minutes here. Dr. Dayal, you talked about a number of factors which obviously shows that the criminal justice system itself has a major problem dealing with such cases, whether it's in terms of empathy, whether it's in terms of training, investigation, prosecution, and the rest of it. But there's also a sociological issue here. So there's a combination of the sociological factors with the lacuna in the criminal justice system.
Indeed so. In fact, they're not just parallel, they're interconnected. The lacuna arise from the sociological factors, the patriarchy, the basic fact that the raped person, the victim, is not interviewed by a woman policewoman. She is interviewed and harangued by a male cop, twice her age, 3 times her age, rooted in patriarchy. And the poor child would be totally, or even a mother, if that were the case, would be totally wouldn't even know how to respond. I've been witness, even in courts myself, as a younger reporter, that they get raped even when being tried. The way the judges interrogate them, the cross-examined by the lawyers. This requires a very comprehensive, multidimensional change. Training of police is one aspect, Training of judiciary is one aspect. Training of social workers and human rights activists is another. I cannot say, as an activist myself, that we have really learned how to show empathy with the victim.
Absolutely. And I think an issue that unfortunately, is a South Asian problem in many ways, not just an Indian problem. And I think, changes have to take place at multiple levels for the South Asian countries to address this problem. But thank you so much, Dr. John Dayal. Thank you also to Mr. Ravi Shrivastava. This is all from In Focus this evening. We shall see you tomorrow at the same time. Keep following our latest updates on social media at indus.news. Good night and goodbye.
Welcome to the most modern and luxurious gated community in Bahria Town, Karachi. Here, every luxury is at your doorstep. Every facility is within your reach. Every leisure is a few minutes away from you. An international standard hospital with state-of-the-art cardio facility. Pakistan's leading schools and colleges. Bahria Town, Karachi is a gift to the people of Karachi and Sindh, where for the first time in Pakistan, international standard infrastructure and facilities are being provided to the middle class. Bahria Town, Karachi is the safest gated community in Pakistan due to its excellent quality of life and security. Thousands of families live in Bahria Town's housing communities and apartment blocks. Life without fear and danger, and the best lifestyle. Bahria Town, Karachi's bright streets and clean environment offer a view of a well-managed and responsible society. The latest waste management for waste disposal. Mini dams for rainwater storage. Water and sewerage management system. Dedicated grid stations. Bahria Town, Karachi's lifestyle and excellent management is the reason that most of the houses in the whole of Karachi are being built in Bahria Town, Karachi, where due to the best and futuristic planning there is an uninterrupted traffic flow. There are public queues at Bahria Town, Karachi's head offices, transfer counters, and stability in price of properties. Beginning of membership in Pakistan's first 36-hole golf course and completion of clubhouse. Construction of country club and 5-star hotel after possession of plots. Construction of houses in Bahria Golf City is in full swing. Construction of Rafi Cricket Stadium in Bahria Sports City, as well as possession of plots and luxury villas. The world's third largest Grand Mosque is in the final stages of completion, while several other mosques have been completed. Phased occupation also begins in Bahria Heights. Construction of Model Street and Navy Greens. Possession phase of Bahria Paradise Villas also begins. Construction of Central Park, New York-style apartments. In Bahria farmhouses, many constructions have been completed while others are underway. Commercial areas of Bahria Town are reaching new heights of success. Hundreds of commercial buildings are making Bahria Town Karachi's new commercial hub. The day and nights of Bahria Town are different. Here, people do not fight for life, but live a full life. They do not fear difficulties, but they gather happiness. It is a city for people who want to live their lives, make their future generations successful, and see their future bright. For a full life and a hopeful future, call 0800 00 100. Bahria Town, Karachi.
Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the group will ensure the safety of all Afghans, including those who worked for the United States. He was addressing his first ever press conference in Kabul following the Taliban's military takeover of Afghanistan. He said the Taliban are working on the formation of a new Islamic government in Afghanistan. He said the world should rest assured that the group will not allow anyone to use their soil against any country. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has stressed the need to secure an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. He was speaking to a high-level Afghan delegation led by the Speaker of Walisi Jirga in Islamabad. Khan said no other country is more desirous of peace and stability in Afghanistan than Pakistan. Separately, he held a telephone conversation with UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson to discuss the latest situation in Afghanistan. In Niger, officials say 37 people have been killed in a militant attack in the western Talabri region. They said armed men sped into a village on motorbikes on Monday afternoon, shooting people as they worked in their fields. 13 of the dead are children. A human rights group, Fortify Rights, says ethnic Karen commanders in Myanmar have admitted that their forces killed 25 men in June. The commanders deny wrongdoing, saying the men were spies for the military, which seized power in February and detained elected leaders. The rights group says the killings amount to a war crime. In the Kashmir Premier League, Muzaffarabad Tigers are chasing 170-run target set by Rawalakot Hawks in the finals of the tournament. Kashif Ali was the top scorer with a half-century. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us.
Now, as all of us continue to watch what unfolds in Afghanistan,
every day that American forces are in Afghanistan, they create more ill will. There are more casualties.
I would think that with the trillions that have been spent of American money, somebody should be asking, was it all worth it?
The United States is going to impose harsh sanctions on the Taliban government and make the suffering of the Afghan people.
Has the U.S. done right by the Afghan people throughout these 20 years and now as it left the country?
It will play a blame game with partisan politics. The Republicans blaming Biden and Biden saying that he did the best he could with a bad hand.
Is that Afghan lives matter.
And that shows you that the mission indeed has failed.
Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the group will ensure the safety of all Afghans, including those who worked for the United States. He was addressing his first ever press conference in Kabul following the Taliban's military takeover of Afghanistan. The spokesperson said the Taliban are working on the formation of a new Islamic government in Afghanistan. He said nobody will be harmed under Taliban rule. He said the international community should rest assured that the Taliban will not allow anyone to use their soil against any country. Mujahid said the group doesn't want any conflict and peace is its top priority. He added that the group is committed to ensure the rights of women within the framework of Islamic law. For more on this, we are joined by Hamdullah Hamdard, political analyst from Afghanistan. Thank you for your time. Mr. Hamdullah, U.S. President Joe Biden, in his speech, held the Afghan government for everything wrong in the country and the situation right now. Is it justified for Washington to exonerate itself completely from any responsibility regarding what unfolded in Afghanistan over the past 2 decades?
Well, as an Afghan, I'd like to say that the U.S. cannot take out themselves of this responsibility in Afghanistan for the last 2 decades. Whatever they have done in Afghanistan, they have killed so many people in Afghanistan, and now they are leaving Afghanistan irresponsibly. This is not fair at all, according to all the international rules and regulations. They did not do good to the people of Afghanistan. They killed a lot of people. They destroyed Afghanistan. They used lots of bombs in Afghanistan. And now they say they are not responsible for the lives of the people. They did not come here for the nation building. They just came here to kill Al-Qaeda leader and to finish any threats to the U.S. in Afghanistan. This is not fair at all. They should have worked for the nation building. They should have worked for ensuring or bringing a strong central government in the country, and then they could leave easily. They could surrender the government either to Taliban or any other political parties very responsibly, and then they could leave. But unfortunately, they did not do that. Last night, Mr. Biden talked very irresponsibly, and he said that he is squarely supporting his decision and he will not regret it. But we, the people of Afghanistan, regret his decision. We regret their coming to Afghanistan. We regret their being in Afghanistan. And we also say shame on them for leaving Afghanistan so irresponsibly in a chaos and turmoil. However, the situation in Afghanistan will get better soon. People are trying to cooperate with the Islamic Emirate to finish these chaos and the looting which was done in Kabul for the last 2 days. Everything is going to get better soon, but economically, the Afghan government needs support. The international community should not leave Afghanistan alone. There are so many people. Afghans' lives matter, and the international community has to pay serious attention to that. Otherwise, they will lose Afghanistan, and the people of Afghanistan will be lost, and people of Afghanistan will have no reason to live.
Right. Mr. Hamdullah, President Biden clearly accused President Ashraf Ghani of massive corruption and aid money given by the international community, especially the U.S. How would Mr. Ghani be held accountable for these crimes?
Well, I guess that the U.S. and the international community themselves fostered corruption in Afghanistan. Whenever the USACE was giving contracts to the construction companies and to other contractors, they fostered corruption during that times. And through the first day of the U.S. and international community's arrival in Afghanistan, the corruption continued and started in all the departments, in all the organizations of the international organizations or the government organizations. It was not only Dr. Ghani's administration, even during Hamid Karzai's administration, and in all international organizations or NGOs that were working in Afghanistan, the corruption was a very common thing. International community should be asked for this as well. Not only Dr. Ghani, and all the high official of the government or non-government people who were running the NGOs in Afghanistan, especially the ones who were giving contracts for receiving so many illegal dollars. They all have to be kept responsible for this, and they should be asked for that.
Right. Mr. Hamdullah, we're already witnessing certain global players warming up to a possible Taliban government in Afghanistan. Short of elections, what do you believe would be the key factors that could lead to international recognition and legitimization of a Taliban rule?
Well, if Taliban want to be recognized globally, I believe that they should not stop women from working or going to schools. There should be girls and boys education, the university, the schools, and everything should continue. The media should work very independently like it did during the regime of Dr. Ghani and the government of President Hamid Karzai. The work should continue normally. They should not force people to stop working there. Unfortunately, I saw in some of the provinces that they even destroyed the barber shops pictures in which there were some haircut designs or some Western haircut designs, which is not fair. By doing such acts, they will lose their credibility globally. If they want to be credible or recognized by global community or international community, they have to get used to the normal government. They should become a little bit more democratic. Otherwise, people will not accept them. International community will not accept them. They cannot force the Afghan women to stay at home and not to work. They should let women work, and they should cooperate with them. And that's in the favor of everyone. In the favor of Taliban, in the favor of the people, and in the favor of international community. Otherwise, those educated women and girls will have to flee the country as soon as they find any single opportunity for that.
Right. Mr. Hamdullah, what is the latest situation at the Kabul airport? Have the international forces taken any arrangements to secure the airport?
The situation of the Kabul airport was at its worst in the history of Afghanistan. We had never seen such a worse situation at the Kabul airport. The people were fleeing, and there was the military airplane of U.S. forces in which some Afghans, some youths were taken out of Afghanistan. According to my information in the reports I received, they were taken to Tajikistan until the next steps will be taken by the U.S. To transfer them or to carry them either to the U.S. or to Canada or somewhere else. But I guess at the moment they are in Tajikistan. They were taken to Tajikistan, and even some young Afghans who could not find place inside that airplane, they held themselves outside of the airplane, and they were just, they lost their lives when the airplane was taking off. And that was so sad to see that scenario. The international community does not value the lives of Afghans. They left Afghans in chaos. They brought, they were supporting the governments, which were led only by the Afghan Americans. They brought the ministers here who were the Afghan Americans. All the corruption made in Afghanistan was made by the Afghan Americans. Those money was taken back to the U.S. So it means the U.S. government and the U.S. is also responsible for all the corruption in Afghanistan. And they have to be asked for this by the United Nations, by the United Nations Security Council, and by all other countries who can make the U.S. responsible, or who can ask them for this responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. And now we are joined by Saber Shah, political analyst from Lahore. Mr. Saber, thank you for joining us. For more on this, we have with us Saber Shah, political analyst from Lahore. Mr. Saber, thank you for joining us. Mr. Saber, the Taliban have softened their stance on women's rights, and today they urged women to join a future government. How do you see the statement?
I presume there is a lot of disinformation coming from Afghanistan. I'm not sure about the information that is coming to us. There is a lot of chaos and unrest in rest of Afghanistan. See, I was watching these channels like Russian television, CNN and BBC, and all of them are giving a fairly different news. They are portraying Taliban as being extremely unjust and cruel, which is true in many ways. So we'll have to see for a few days till they form the government, and if they really mean that people from all walks of life should join them, and that they should not be afraid of anything, I mean, it will be pretty evident. Right now, I can see this country of over 32 million people embattled. See, I was just hearing Pentagon has pledged it would evacuate these troubled Afghanis, and that they would send more forces and aeroplanes. No, this is a situation which they should have anticipated beforehand. And we were all hearing that the Taliban are 150 to 200 kilometers away. Now, Americans would also have been hearing all this. This is a distance that you cover in a few hours. How can Biden say that Afghanistan was captured by the Taliban much before they had anticipated? See, it has taken United States some 4 presidents, 2,300 lives, and over $1,000 billion since October 2001 to replace Taliban with Taliban. It's a zero-sum game. They've lost people here. Images coming to us are extremely disturbing and heart-wrenching. You see, the only thing we can seek solace in is that India is out of contention. It's out of Afghanistan after having lost $3 billion. It has set a lot of research and intelligence wing camps, training camps in Afghanistan, all of which stand abandoned now. So this is the only thing we can seek solace in, we can be happy about. Otherwise, I presume Pakistan, its government and establishment are not very sure how will Taliban behave after emerging victorious. They're surely doubting their beliefs and believing their doubts. And nobody can predict. Nobody can air a prophecy. I mean, in case they resort to cross-border terrorism, you and I both know they surely have a lot of sympathizers there in Pakistani mountains. We have been battling them out. So we have lost over 80,000 people and about $150 billion in this war against terror. So we cannot be sure about Taliban's behavior. We cannot be complacent about it. And what do you think? America will digest this defeat easily? Will the NATO digest this defeat easily? No. I think they'll be pressurizing Pakistan to accept all the refugees and create further chaos and pandemonium on its soil. We have already been suffering at the hands of these 3 million refugees whose second generation has grown up here, who have minted a lot of money here, and who've been responsible for a lot of terrorism, in my opinion, in Pakistan.
Mr. Sabir, yesterday, Biden defended abrupt pullout from Afghanistan despite criticism from the UK and Germany. What's your say on this?
Well, I think history will remember Biden as a good president. He has done well for the Americans. He may not have done well for the Afghans. He has done very well for the Americans. His predecessors, they are solely responsible for wasting $1,000 billion here in Afghanistan. They tried to raise an army with an amount of $89 billion, but failed. They should have known this before. So basically, America has lost 7,036 soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan during the last 2 decades. 64,000 Afghans have also lost lives in this whole process. There has been an embezzlement to the tune of about $20 billion in Afghanistan. I mean, who's going to be responsible for this? Biden, I think he has done well for the Americans. He has taken the right stance. As far as the other presidents are concerned, I mean, America has been at war for 80% of its history since 1812. So it is a trigger-happy country, and Americans should blame Pentagon, CIA, and its own government, their own governments for all these loss of life. So Biden, I think, has done well. He has taken a good stance. You cannot capture Afghans. They have a history of fighting. They've been fighting here for thousands of years. Nobody has been able to capture them. You see the Red Army coming here for 9 or 10 years and then retreating back, and it resulted in the disintegration of the former Soviet Union. The British Empire lost a lot of people here. 10,000 of them were alone lost in the 1880 disease here in Afghanistan. You see, these are mountains. They are known to the mountains. Mountains know them. You cannot fight them with weapons alone or with the ammunitions alone. This is just a myth.
Mr. Sabir Shah, thank you for speaking to Indus News. For more on this, we are joined by Amna Khan, a political analyst from Islamabad. Ms. Amna, thank you for joining Indus News. Ms. Amna, defending his decision of Afghan pullout, U.S. President Biden said establishing democracy and nation building was never America's mission in the country. Whereas U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad has been advocating and striving for unified, centralized democratic government in Afghanistan for years. Isn't that a blatant contradiction in Washington's stance?
Yes, unfortunately, there is a major contradiction when it comes to the American foreign policy, particularly on Afghanistan. Now, when President Biden came into power, we were all expecting, as he stated, that there would be a review of the process, and one certainly did not expect such a hasty withdrawal. One would have expected that from the Trump administration. However, having said that, I think the manner in which it has happened, we are all seeing that the Americans have clearly left Afghanistan in a very unfavorable situation, literally in a lurch. And I think even now it is very convenient for the Americans to say that the onus is now on the Afghans and that they have to sort out the mess themselves. If that was the case, then we would have not have seen this war prolonging for more than 2 decades. Now, I think still with the situation, unraveling, we've seen that the Taliban more or less have literally, taken over Afghanistan in a relatively peaceful manner. We haven't seen, a major exodus of refugees. Yes, there has been internal displacement, and we haven't seen a lot of bloodshed, which is somewhat positive. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this inclusive political setup, which, by the way, was a major point in the U.S.-Taliban agreement. And I just wish that, the Americans had secured this from all sides before withdrawing. However, having said that, there is still time to salvage the situation, and I think the Americans, I've always said this in the past, being a major stakeholder and signatory of the agreement, I think it is imperative they have a responsibility, and that is to leave after creating some semblance of stability, and that means brokering still a negotiated settlement, if not with the Kabul regime, which no longer is there, but with the other political factions and the Taliban, as we've been hearing about this inclusive political setup. Now, the Taliban themselves have been talking about it, but let's be very honest, their concept of this inclusive setup is also very vague because they haven't given us a framework. One is hopeful that now that, the situation, it's very clear on the ground. The regional countries are pushing for this, and the Taliban also know that they cannot operate in totality, nor can they operate in isolation, and they will have to reach some sort of an agreement. But again, it is for the Americans to broker some sort of, an inclusive setup.
Right. Ms. Amna, the U.S. President promised the world an orderly and responsible exit from Afghanistan, but he admitted now that it was bad, messy, and far from perfect. What would be the consequence of this messy exit on Afghanistan and the region?
Well, look, I don't know whether you're following, but if you see the scenes, from the Kabul airport, that just shows you the kind of desperation, the kind of frustration and disappointment, the Afghan masses, feel and have been feeling for the, past 20 years, if we just look at, since 9/11. It's very easy to say that, it was a mistake. The fact is, again, as I keep on saying, there is still time to correct the mistake. There is still time to salvage the situation. And I think this is the responsibility that the Americans have. Because, look, for example, with the Taliban have been engaging with regional countries. Pakistan has had a relationship with them from day one. But the day the Americans signed the agreement, they legitimized the Taliban, and they conveniently ignored Kabul. Now, within that framework, the entire onus does lie on the Americans. They can still, correct the mistakes of the past, and that means by brokering, by pushing the Taliban. They do have certain, leverage points that they can, put on the Taliban to come to the negotiating table with the remaining factions that are there. And then, we still have Dr. Abdullah, you've got Hamid Karzai, you've got the former members of the Northern Alliance. So there is a workable structure that's there, and I think, from my understanding, that some sort of an agreement has been reached, but I think they're just waiting for the right moment. And I think within this week, we are going to see progress on this front.
Amna Khan, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. NATO's Secretary General has held the Afghan leadership responsible for the swift collapse of the country's armed forces. In a news briefing, Jens Stoltenberg said the Afghan leadership has failed to stand up against the Taliban, terming Taliban's takeover as a tragedy. He said there are lessons that need to be learned following the transition, but the alliance must also uncover flaws in its military training effort. Stoltenberg said NATO's aim in Afghanistan was to help build a viable state, not to maintain a permanent presence. He said the alliance will remain alert for signs of regrouping of terrorist groups in the country and can strike them from a distance. The world is scrambling to adapt to the new reality in Afghanistan that has unfolded rather abruptly. With the Taliban takeover of Kabul and the US withdrawal, only Pakistani, Chinese and Russian embassies are now functioning in the Taliban-led Afghanistan. More in this report.
As the highly fluid situation in Afghanistan starts taking some form and shape, the international community weighs in. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken that it was Washington's hasty pullout that had a serious negative impact. This comes as Blinken sought the world's coordination to handle the state of affairs in Afghanistan. In a phone call, Wang pleaded to work for stability in Afghanistan, but he said the United States tries to harm China's interests. Blinken also spoke separately with his counterparts in Russia, the United Kingdom and Turkey, as well as the European Union and NATO chiefs. Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov agreed to continue consultations with Pakistan, China and others to enable an inclusive intra-Afghan dialogue in the new environment. Earlier, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said the United States does not want to be held responsible for its geopolitical experiments. Zakharova also blamed the United States for the chaos at the Kabul airport, which left 7 people dead. Britain, meanwhile, has stressed the need to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a base for terrorist groups. French President Emmanuel Macron echoed the same sentiments and pledged to do everything for the world to cooperate on Afghan matters. Earlier, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi said the United States' defeat in Afghanistan is a chance for peace. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Nobel Peace Laureate Malala Yousafzai urged United States President as well as the United Kingdom to take bold steps to protect Afghans. In an interview, Yousafzai urged countries to open their borders to Afghan refugees.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has stressed the need to secure an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. He was speaking to a high-level Afghan delegation led by the Speaker of Walesi Jirga in Islamabad. He said no other country is more desirous of peace and stability in Afghanistan than Pakistan. The Afghan delegation expressed its desire to further bolster ties between the two countries. The delegation also called on Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa in Rawalpindi. During the meeting, General Bajwa said Pakistan wants broad-based relations with Afghanistan. Separately, Khan held a telephone conversation with the Prime Ministers of the UK and Turkey to discuss the latest situation in Afghanistan. Pakistan says it will remain engaged with the US and other international partners for a peaceful and stable Afghanistan. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this to US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in a phone call. Qureshi said an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan is the best way forward. The Foreign Minister apprised Secretary Blinken of Islamabad's efforts to facilitate the evacuation. Qureshi also underlined Islamabad's commitment to forging a long-term and broad-based relationship with Washington. Meanwhile, Federal Minister for Information and Broadcasting Fawad Chaudhry said Pakistan will not make a unilateral decision on recognizing the Taliban. He said the government is in touch with regional and international powers to determine its policy course.